Before we get into the video, let's set the table. This video breaks down why episode 10 of Landman Season 2 is shaping up to be the most consequential chapter of the entire show so far. We're talking about Tommy's potential exit from M-Tex, how that single decision sends shockwaves through Cooper, Ariana, Angela, Ainsley, Cami, Dan, and even the offshore drilling project itself. This isn't just a workplace drama anymore. It's about power, leverage, family survival, and the illusion of control finally collapsing. What looks like one man getting fired could quietly unravel every relationship and alliance the show has been building all season.
I'm saying you're fired.
Now let's get into it. Episode 10 is almost certainly built around one central inevitability: Tommy's departure from M-Tex. Whether it's framed as a firing, a forced resignation, or a mutual separation that fools no one, the outcome is the same. Tommy is being pushed out of the machine he helped build. And what makes this hit harder is that the show has been warning us for a while. Thomas repeatedly told Tommy to stop living at work and start paying attention to his family. At the time, it felt like background character wisdom, the kind of advice TV dads always give that never fully lands. But now, in hindsight, it feels like a slow-motion prophecy finally coming true. Tommy himself has clearly seen this coming. After Cami cut her deal with Dan, something shifted in him. For the first time, Tommy wasn't the indispensable problem solver anymore. He was the guy who built the engine, but someone else now thought they could drive it without him. That realization explains why Tommy became so focused on securing Cooper's position at M-Tex. This wasn't nepotism, it was survival planning. Tommy wasn't protecting his legacy, he was protecting his bloodline. Cooper's job wasn't just a paycheck. It was the foundation supporting Ariana and little Miguel. And once that foundation cracks, everything above it becomes unstable. Tommy getting fired doesn't just affect his pride or his career. It detonates a chain reaction across his entire family. Cooper is already standing on thin ice after beating Johnny nearly to death. Even if the context clearly paints Cooper as someone acting in defense of Ariana, the law doesn't care about emotional nuance, especially if Johnny has money, influence, and connections. If Johnny decides to press charges, and the show has made it clear that he absolutely could, Cooper's future could be legally wrecked before it even begins. And here's where Tommy's firing becomes especially dangerous. Normally, Tommy could call Nate or Rebecca, lean on legal favors, and smooth things over behind closed doors. But without his position at M-Tex, those doors may suddenly slam shut. That leaves Cooper at the mercy of Johnny's ego. The only way Cooper walks away clean is if Johnny decides that pursuing charges would expose his own shame and wrongdoing, that he chooses embarrassment over vengeance. But this is Landman, a show obsessed with pride, dominance, and power. People like Johnny don't usually walk away quietly. They retaliate, which means Cooper's legal trouble is still very much alive, and Tommy is suddenly powerless to stop it. And then there's Cami. If Tommy is no longer an M-Tex employee, what incentive does she have to keep Cooper around? From Cami's perspective, Cooper could easily become a liability. Worse, he could become a perceived threat. If she believes Tommy might sabotage the company through his son, paranoia alone could push her to fire Cooper preemptively. It wouldn't even be personal. It would be business. And that's the scariest part. Once Cami starts justifying her decisions as necessary, morality stops being part of the equation. If Cooper loses his job, the ripple effects are devastating. His ability to support Ariana and Miguel disappears overnight. Ariana's own employment at the Patch Cafe isn't exactly secure either. Barney may decide that keeping her on staff invites controversy he doesn't want anywhere near his business. In a town where reputation is currency, even proximity to scandal can be fatal. Suddenly, this young family is staring down financial collapse, through no fault of their own. And that's just one branch of the fallout. Tommy's firing is also poised to become a brutal wake-up call for Angela and Ainsley. The show has flirted dangerously with satire through the pagan subplot, and this is where the writers either prove they're self-aware or expose themselves completely. Everything Angela and Ainsley enjoy, the comfort, the entitlement, the endless demands, is funded by Tommy's M-Tex salary. Strip that away, and the illusion shatters. Yes, Tommy will likely receive a generous severance package, but severance is finite. It has an expiration date, and nothing about Angela and Ainsley suggests they understand limits. If the show commits to realism, We're about to see what happens when privilege meets consequences. No more telling others to fix themselves. No more emotional outsourcing. This is where Angela and Ainsley either evolve or become unbearable cautionary tales. And narratively, that tension is gold because it forces the audience to confront a hard truth. Love doesn't survive unchecked entitlement forever. So does Tommy ever return to M-Tex? There are only two plausible paths. The first would be employee revolt, a mass protest demanding Tommy's reinstatement. But this is M-Tex. There are no strong unions. Job security is fragile. Fear keeps people compliant. At most, we might see Nate or Dale walk out in solidarity, but they're older, closer to retirement, and ultimately replaceable. And even then, Tommy wouldn't want them risking their lives or livelihoods for him. That's not who he is, which leaves option 2, catastrophe. The offshore drilling project is a ticking time bomb. It's operating in waters recently battered by Hurricane Francine. Offshore rigs are complex, temperamental systems where one overlooked variable can cascade into disaster. Charlie and Rebecca might be competent, but competence doesn't equal omniscience. When things go wrong at sea, they go wrong fast. And if the situation spirals beyond their control, there's only one person with the institutional knowledge and instinct to stabilize the chaos: Tommy. Would Charlie deliberately sabotage the rig to bring Tommy back? No, that would destroy his career and his relationship with Rebecca. But he doesn't have to. Nature, negligence, or bad timing could do the job for him. And once the crisis hits, Cami may have no choice but to swallow her pride and call the one man she pushed away. Tommy's firing also threatens the fragile emotional recovery of Thomas. His strange, tentative relationship with Cheyenne had finally begun to lift him out of his depressive fog. Tommy losing his job could undo that progress instantly. Or, and this is where the show has a chance to surprise us, it could strengthen Thomas. Maybe that connection with Cheyenne has grounded him enough to become the support system Tommy has always been for everyone else. For the first time, the roles might reverse. And if M-Tex truly burns its bridge with Tommy, there's a poetic alternative waiting in the wings. Tommy and Thomas starting something of their own. A return to roots. Experience meeting legacy. It wouldn't just be a business move, it would be a reclamation of identity. Finally, there's Dan. The show hasn't invested this much time in his desperation to enter the oil business for nothing. If Dan turns out to be completely legitimate, then all that buildup was narrative waste. More likely, we're about to see the mask slip. When pressure rises, true motives surface. If the cartel side of Dan emerges, Cami may deeply regret ignoring Tommy's warnings. Dan could force her hand, either by demanding Tommy's return or by pulling support entirely. There's also the wildcard scenario where Dan cuts M-Tex out altogether and brings Tommy into Angela's investments instead. That would allow Tommy to manage the offshore operation without answering to Cami. A power shift that would sting far worse than any firing. At the end of the day, episode 10 isn't about whether Tommy loses his job. That's already decided. It's about what happens when the illusion of control collapses for everyone who thought they were safe. Landman has been quietly building toward this reckoning all season, and when it hits, it won't be loud. It'll be devastating. Some of these predictions will land, some won't. But one thing is certain, nothing in Landman goes back to the way it was after this.